Hi, everybody. I hope you're doing marvelously well. We're big, we're bad, and we're back for a Fact Friday, but we're definitely not in black. We're in pale blue. So here we are. We're back with some more Fact Fridays. The rather wonderful Mr. Joe Carell has done a couple for us, so thank you ever so much, Joe. But here we are. We're actually sitting in Sweetwater today because we have been here filming, well, some video content and actually teaching a masterclass. But here is the first question, read by His Highness Sir Eric von Derrickson.
Do you make mixing decisions with the limiter on? Why or why not?
That's an interesting question because I will use limiters inside of a mix quite often. And once I've maybe created a really explosive drum sound, I might have drums bust a parallel bus as well as like a clean bus, but the parallel bus is squashed and maybe limited and then brought up underneath. So yes, in those situations, there's a limiting inside of the mix. But I imagine your question is based on whether I put a limiter on my mix bus and then mix into it. No, very, very rarely. It might be that at the very end of the mix, I put some light compression, some EQ, and maybe a little light limiting on the top just to control, any errant transients of the whole mix. And it might be that then I go and correct something that isn't quite right while still keeping everything on the master bus. But I'll never start off with compression and EQ and limiting and everything on my mix bus, my master bus, and then mix into it. I'll never do that. Now, there are people that do that, but they have fully created templates that they have been doing for years. And they're also working in a genre which barely moves. Like a lot of modern rock guys doing very heavy stuff will have everything laid out, and they just drop in the drums with the same samples, with the same EQ and compression and everything. And they'll have their master bus set up with all of the plugins that they want, but all the busing, all the individual tracking is done. And the only thing that's different is the songs. But the production is very similar and the mixing is very similar. So if you get yourself into the amazing position of mixing the same kinds of music all of the time, it might be possible that you create a template which becomes a one-size-fits-all. But that's also a dangerous territory, of course, because then every single thing that you mix will be treated in exactly the same way. Templates are great, but I tend to create a template at the beginning of an album. So if somebody sends me an album to mix and I mix the first song and it finally gets approved through tweaking, I'll probably take those settings and apply it to the second song. So I've got a good starting off place. And by the end of maybe a 10-song record, I may have a template that works for all of those songs. But when I start a new album with a new artist, I don't bring in that template because that template was specific to the artist and those songs and that production and that album. So no, I very rarely do any mix choices into a master bus that has compression, EQ, and limiting already on it, unless it's just that final tweak after I think I've finished. Of course, if I think I've finished and I'm limiting it and there's still a little problem, I'll tweak it based on that. But I don't start off with limiting on my master bus.
Having a family and full-time job with mixing and producing as my side gig, how can I best manage my time and resources to potentially grow my name as an engineer and producer?
That's always a tough conversation. When we are growing our business, even if it's a full-time or a part-time hobby/job, it takes a lot of time and energy. And having enough time for your family is incredibly important. And it is really difficult to balance. One of my solutions is my wife works with me. So she'll be sitting off camera quite often, helping out with the filming. So if there is any opportunity that you can to incorporate, your husband or wife's or partner's skills into your job, that would be absolutely amazing. That makes it better. It makes it easier. And it means that you're still connected to each other, connected to your family while working. But that's a very small part of your question. Ultimately, the reality is to kickstart your production, mixing, mastering, songwriting, musician career, it is a lot of sacrifice of hours. I cannot say anything other than the fact that I still work a lot of hours, a lot, because I still produce, engineer, and mix, and write, and like to practice guitar, and I do all the video content, and I'm passionate and love music. Without music in my life, I don't know what I would do. So for you, if you really are trying to build your musical career, especially while holding down a full-time job and having a family, you're going to have to find balance, which means you're going to have to push to a breaking point to find out just how much you can do that without ruining the other aspects of your life. It's an unfortunate reality. There is no easy solution. There'll be a lot of people that say it's easy. It is not. The people I know that are successful have all worked incredibly long hours and have sacrificed many, many things. And it's really up to you to make sure that you find the limits that work for you and your family. Have really good communication with your family. Make sure they do not feel ignored. Make sure that you are putting in the time as a father or a mother to your children. And yeah, that's what it's all about. It is about finding the balance. Every single one of us has a different situation. And sometimes when the kids are a little bit older, you're going to have more time. When the kids are younger, you're going to have less time. And it's just balancing that out. When my son was born, I would go to the studio about 10 o'clock in the morning and work pretty late because we were a couple with a lot of expenses and our first child. And then I would come back and do the night shift with my son so that my wife could actually have some time off and get some rest. And I would be up super, super late with him and then go back to work in the morning. And that's just what you have to do. You just have to do what you have to do. Music, like any art, any of the arts, has to be something that you love because you are going to sacrifice a lot of your free time. Like, don't expect to go out clubbing every single night, have a family, and also have a musical career. You've really got to be passionate about this. You've got to love this, and you've got to be able to work it out for yourself. It is a reality. And once again, good communication with the people that you love around you is the best solution for that, and finding out what that balance is.
If you're too old to learn computer recording, should you just go back to what you know?
What does that mean? Too old to learn computer recording? Okay, here's my answer. 8 years ago, I did the first of 3 Ace Frehley records. He came to me and he had a record that needed a lot of work. It needed to be mixed, but honestly, it needed we did a lot of re-recording of guitars. He had done a lot of floor unit, direct out, hadn't mic'd up amps and all this kind of stuff. And we recut some drums and he sang some stuff. I actually got to sing on it as well. It was a really fun album to make. So he came to me with this record. And I think he was probably about 8 years ago. Those of you that are Kiss and Ace Frehley fans would know, but I want to say he was in his mid-60s, maybe mid to late 60s. Anyway, say mid-60s. And I didn't know what to expect, but Ace pulls up, plonks down a computer and a screen on the table behind me and is editing everything himself. So he's in his mid-60s and he's learning and getting good at Pro Tools. Now, there's a lot of stereotypes of drunken rock stars, of the old. This is not Ace Frehley. Ace Frehley is a focused, hardworking individual and has learned and is learning Pro Tools in his mid-60s. I think he's probably in his early mid-70s now. I don't know. But the reality is it's a hard question because the question is sort of making a lot of assumptions. I don't think anybody is too old to learn something new. And I think at the end of the day, any DAW that I've ever used, the basics of it, like getting into record, finding where to plonk into record, getting out of record, setting levels, panning, EQ with some basic plugins, setting up a reverb or delay, it's pretty much within anybody's reach of any level of intelligence. It's really no more complicated than using a console. Like we have this beautiful Rupert Neve behind us. This is a beautiful console. If you don't know this console, this is probably no more difficult or no easier than using a computer. I want to encourage people and realize that, yes, if you want to get into the weeds and sample accurately, edit something and tune it within its life, but then if you're in your mid-60s or whatever it might be, and you want to learn how to record, are you the kind of person in your mid-60s that grew up on 70s rock? Do you want to get in there and learn the ultra detail of editing and manipulating audio? Or do you just want a DAW, a DAW that captures basic performances, allows you to manipulate sound in a minimal way, just like you would on tape, with extra advantages like being able to copy and paste sections that you prefer, move drum fills around, all this kind of stuff. All of it is very straightforward and easy to use. It's only when you get into the really, really overly complex stuff that maybe it will take a bit of time to get past. We have so many members of our academy that are in their 60s, so many that are making great music for the first time using any DAW. Any DAW at all, whether it be Pro Tools, Logic, FL Studio, Cakewalk, Studio One. I mean, the list is endless. Cubase, Nuendo, it doesn't matter what you use. The basics are just as easy as working on a console, and frankly, probably a little bit easier than figuring out how to cut tape. I remember learning how to bias a tape machine and cut tape, and that was significantly harder than anything I've done in a DAW. But of course, if you've got a 2-inch tape machine and a beautiful console and a bunch of outboard and a great mic collection, and you make great records, why do you need to learn a DAW? There you go. But I think if you're starting off fresh in your mid-60s, learn a DAW, learn the DAW. You will not have a problem learning the basics. It's actually quite straightforward. And better still, there's so many of us, myself included, that are really willing to help you learn. Thanks everybody for watching. Please leave any other questions down below for future FAQ Friday. So long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen, au revoir, adios, goodbye.